Charlie. Let's talk to Charlie. Hello, Charlie. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. What would you like to talk about today?
Howdy. I had a series of questions for y'all, if you
Cool.
don't mind answering them.
We'll
okay.
see where that goes.
Question.
Yeah, let's start with one question.
Let's start with one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ease us in.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
No problem. So the first question is, I wanted to know whether or not y'all subscribe to naturalism. So the philosophical belief that everything arises from natural properties and causes, and that non-natural explanations can be excluded or discounted.
As articulated, I'm not sure. I think that I would subscribe to naturalism. Like the first part I would agree with. The second part I think might be a little bit of a bridge too far for me, because just to flat out say they can be excluded, for me would seem as though I'm closing off to possibilities that I don't necessarily want to close off to. Right. Of the supernatural existing. I'm not closed off to that being the case. I just don't believe, based on my current experience, exposure, and knowledge, that it is the case or is likely to be possible. So I guess maybe, I don't know, Johnny, do you disagree with me anywhere there?
I don't even know what a non-natural cause would be. I guess it would be God or Thor or something, but I haven't seen any evidence of it, and I'm very much open to it. I'd love to see some evidence of it, because it would make the world, as interesting as it is, far more interesting. Because now we got magic.
That's a good segue into the next question then. The next question was,
I aim to serve.
Whether or not you believe, no problem. The next question was, if you believe only in things you have evidence for. In other words, you believe things that you can't, and so you don't believe in things that you can't falsify. Like God, for instance.
Oh, well, do I believe? Here's something. I can't falsify that aliens exist on the other side of the galaxy or of the universe. And yet I kind of have a very middling belief that extraterrestrial life exists. It's very, very middling, not very intense at all. So.
Yeah, and I would kind of agree with that, but I think that my beliefs, I think my beliefs are apportioned to their relevance to day-to-day life, probably as well. So I would be with Johnny with that. I think that there's a high probability for there to be some form of alien life, intelligent or otherwise, even if it's bacterial on some planet somewhere, just based on the expanse of the universe. But the chance that, especially in my lifetime, that it would even be able to be on the table for falsification is relatively low.
Oh, sure.
Right. So,
but in principle, it could be falsified.
In principle, it could be falsified. If that's what you're looking for, that anything that could in principle be falsified, I don't believe in anything that couldn't in principle be falsified. I'd say that's a strong maybe for me. If I'm understanding correctly, it would be a yes.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put any money down on that belief.
Right.
Like, oh, sure. And that's not possible. And here's the reasons why. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm apportioning it to the relevance to how I operate day to day.
What Shannon Q said, Shannon Q said, it just seems like this is the last question. Okay. So the next question was going to be, how could then? I'm sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay.
You could hear that. Apologies. So the next question was, how could naturalism be falsified or falsify itself through empirical means that the natural world doesn't exist? And you can't falsify naturalism or the natural world. Why would you believe in it?
You can't think of any way that the natural world existing could be falsifiable. Like if there was no perceptions at all of the natural world, that would falsify naturalism. So it could be falsifiable by that means, right? So if there was no entity anywhere in existence, in extant reality, that had any perceptions of reality that would falsify it. I suppose you would still need an entity, which would be a natural, unless you're arguing supernatural. Anyway, but yeah, so can you not think of another way that the natural world could be falsifiable?
Well,
Like, for example, if we're attempting to measure something that's external to us, we have tools that we utilize for measurement that give us like consistent measurements of the outside world that can be corroborated by other people utilizing the same tools. If those tools stopped working and stopped giving us consistent results that the outside world exists in the fashion that we anticipated to, then that would falsify it.
You could show us something that's non-natural.
Here's the
that would totally do it too. God could be like,
I
boom!
read that straight out of the chat. That's not Johnny. That's not Johnny Angel.
able to give an account.
Some DB said it in the chat, and I just read it.
Make an objection.
Sorry, go ahead.
I might be able to give an account of that, but I just wanted to make an objection to Shannon's answer, because it seems like what you propose, it would just be like question begging, right? To show through natural means that the natural world exists, or through empirical means that we can observe the empirical world.
So then you're just not accepting falsification criteria at all, ever, though. Then, right? So you're never ever accepting falsification. So that just means that falsification criteria just can't exist in any circumstance if you're accepting that to be true, wouldn't it?
Well, no. The objection is just that the objection was just following from the line of questioning.
So you're holding that
there's not going to be evidence.
This is interesting though. So I've got a question for you, because I think this is interesting. So you're saying, I want to make sure that I'm understanding what you're saying. It's question begging because you'd be using natural means to measure something natural. But the question itself was about falsification criteria, and all of it led to talking about falsification criteria and how that comports to formulation of beliefs, and whether or not it's reasonable to hold beliefs that can or cannot be falsified. So if the road that you were leading us down towards was basically saying that it's unreasonable to hold beliefs that to only hold beliefs that can be falsified, because falsification criteria exist within the natural world, and thus it's question begging to use any form of measurement, then it would have to hold that no beliefs ever could be falsified, which would mean, like, is that what you were trying to get us to? That no belief, like falsification criteria, is just useless because it exists within the natural world?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, what were you attempting to lead to then?
Yeah,
because that's what's interesting to me.
It was just, sure. Well, maybe that is interesting, but mostly I wanted to kind of show that naturalism falls into something. Are you familiar with Munchausen's trilemma, where all explanations are going to be like circular, or they're going to be axiomatic, or they're going to be, let me think, there was a third one, axiomatic, or there's going to be an infinite regress. So there's an explanation, that explanation has an explanation, and that explanation has an explanation.
So is the
naturalism,
that
falls into other world views. Yeah, sorry. So the problem with naturalism is that it can't be self-justifying, right? So that would be a problem for that view.
Well, I suppose everything that we use to measure the natural world exists within the natural world. Like, I'll grant you that, because that's just on its face true, right? So if you see that as a problem with naturalism, though, just as, or you see that as an issue with how you measure what you believe, I think that's where we would part ways, because it's the best tool available to us. Are you suggesting that the fact that this maybe is the case, that everything, or arguably is the case, everything in the natural world is what we would need to use to measure the existence of the natural world? Like, if you're saying that that's the problem with naturalism, like, what criteria are you using that's better than that in order to form your belief? Or is this just you saying, there's some problems with naturalism too, philosophically, so what?
It's philosophical. So it's like, so what is just that it's not naturalism as a worldview is going to be unjustified, right?
Well, then no
trying to
view
get at.
is justified then. Like, so how is your view justified then, right? So you're just saying naturalism as a worldview isn't justified, and the reason for that is anything that we use to measure the natural world has to exist within the natural world, which I granted that is a philosophical issue, I guess. I'm not a philosopher. But that doesn't lead me to that, thus what I believe, or that not naturalism is thus more reasonable.
Right.
Like that's where you can't get me to. You can't get me to thus not naturalism. Anything outside of naturalism is a more reasonable belief, just because there's that one issue with measurement tools used within naturalism existing in the natural world. Like, but how do you form a belief that is true then? Because then there would be problems with anybody making any statement of truth, period, full stop at all. But like, that's a problem everybody would have, not just a naturalist.
Yes. And what does your non-naturalistic view do that a naturalistic worldview can't do? What, I guess we're not making predictions about things in the spirit realm that we can't have any experience of. And we can't test it. I mean,
be able to make predictions about being able to test predictions is going to fall into the realm of empirical claims.
Okay, great. So essentially, I can get by just fine in this world using just a naturalistic worldview, right? Using empirical data and what have you, and I can just, I guess, go about my business. And there may be some horrible spiritual threat or non-natural obstacles or something facing me, but I would not have the tools at my disposal because I don't employ non-naturalistic analyses to avoid those threats. There's no way of knowing about it. I just don't see the utility of any of this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And how would you perceive anything, like Matt just made this point in the chat, and it's interesting. Like, how would you perceive anything not natural? Like, how could you demonstrate something not natural exists? This seems as though instead of supporting a worldview that's not naturalism, it's just saying, here's a philosophical conundrum that I can think of about naturalism when it comes to demonstrating like that it exists or whatever. But it's literally all we have from my perspective. Like you can't show me something that's not natural. You can come up with a philosophical quandary that is interesting to think about measurement, but that doesn't get me to thus a deity of some form is true. Yeah. It's just saying, here's an interesting philosophical quandary.
Exactly.
But,
and my naturalistic worldview seems to work just fine to get me up in the morning, to feed me, to get where I have to go, and to come back. And even if it's not perfect, and even if there's no way to establish that I'm not existing in some sort of greater universe or whatever you want to say, okay, for purposes of this illusion, I'm functioning just fine. The tool has always worked. How do I evaluate that? Because the tool says so.
That's the pragmatist view. But the problem with the pragmatist view is that it doesn't get us to truth. It only gives us instrumental truth.
How does your view get us the truth? How does your view get us the truth?
Mm-hmm.
How?
And how can you establish that your view, what those truths are?
Yeah. Give me the view that gets us the truth.
Give me a truth that that we don't have access to, that you can prove is actually a truth and not just a thing.
I wouldn't say that you don't have access to it. I think everyone has access to it.
Okay, sure. That we don't have access to using a naturalistic set of tools.
I mean, sure. I think you do. Well, you would agree, though, that like
what is it? Give us one. Go ahead.
Mind is.
Give us one.
Well, you would agree, right, that the mind is something that is not natural, right?
No.
That the mind is
No, I would not agree.
To its,
The mind is a something. I'll agree with that. I don't.
Well,
I'd
what
absolutely
I'm
think
trying to
it's
get at is that the contents, you have thoughts, and there's content to your thoughts, and the contents of your thoughts
There's lots of
are
people that would disagree with that.
right?
when it
And
comes to
proposition. Well, that's well, I don't know. Do you disagree with that?
I totally disagree with that. And like, if I absolutely disagree with that. Like, so I love me a good chat about brains. We're about to go over. So can you do me a favor, and the next time I host, call back and we can talk about minds? Please, 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 please. I'm not just saying that I know people are going to say, oh, she's trying to get him off, but this is my favorite thing to talk about. So
Yeah.
I'm actually disappointed that we're going over and we have to take the next call.
Yeah, come back.
Can you please call back the next time I host, and you and I can have a conversation about minds? You seem like an interesting interlocutor, and I think I would enjoy exploring this subject with you. So please do, but we do have to let you go. Charlie, I'm sorry.
No problem.
And I'm
Cool.
sorry too.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry in Canadian. He's sorry in America. All right. Thank you, Charlie.